We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I am the Senior Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I am super excited to welcome our next guest onto the interview series, Marla Cormier. She is the founder of Emerging Leader Training. Marla, thank you so much for being here. If you want to share a little bit about yourself, including your pronouns and when you were younger, do you remember how exactly you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Awesome. Well, thank you first for having me. I'm really excited to be part of this series. Marla Cormier, she, her, and hers. So just a little bit about me, which will also answer your first question. My whole life, I wanted to be a teacher. So started my first day of kindergarten because Mrs. Lavender seemed to have the coolest job. She got to write on the board and hand out the papers and get people lined up for recess. And I, of course, didn't know that's what teachers, only did in kindergarten, but it just really awakened a love of learning because I really loved her. And I've been fortunate to have so many great teachers throughout my life that my entire career has been about teaching. I started as a classroom teacher and then moved into adult education and creating career advancement programs for some really amazing companies. And then about 4 years ago, decided to go out on my own and start Emerging Leader Training.
That is awesome. As someone who, when I was younger, I also played teacher. I had a big file of facts and loved to write on the board too. That definitely resonates with me as well. I have a lot of questions around your experience and kind of advice you have for other folks who are in this space as well. There's been a lot of conversations around wanting to work at the quote unquote best place to work and knowing that employees are at different stages of their career and more generally their lives too, bringing their different lived experiences into the workplace. How do you think about defining that best place to work?
Well, I think you touched on it. A lot of it has to do with where you are in your career. When I was starting out in corporate America after I left education, I wanted a job where I could get ahead really fast. I was ready for that next title after a year, and I wanted the pay bump, and I wanted all the perks. And there's nothing wrong with wanting all those things. But in my first few jobs, I didn't know enough to get those promotions. And what I would say is at the beginning stages of your career to look for companies that are going to foster all of your interests, provide the training, the experience, the opportunities, so that you can grow your career into whatever your dreams are. Now, if you're further on in your career, maybe you're looking for more stability. Maybe you are looking for advanced titles, and not every company has all of those layers. So you want to make sure that you're looking for a best place, meaning that they have the opportunity and they're willing to grow people from the inside. And if you're even later in your career and you're thinking about the last few years, really looking for stability, for a great place to work where you feel like you're part of a team. If that's what you like. If you prefer to be more solo, look for a place that allows you to kind of step back and not be as heavily involved in team building and all of the fun events that some people like and other people kind of freak out and don't want to be a part of. So I think it's about finding the right culture fit where you feel free to be yourself and to continue to develop at every stage of your career.
Absolutely. And really thinking about the things that are most important to you as well. Do you enjoy that collaborative kind of working environment as you were talking about, where you're talking to people all day? Would you prefer kind of more of your job to be heads down work too, and really investing or evaluating the investment of an organization's career development? Are they, focusing on professional development, upskilling their teams as well? When you think about building that best place to work from an operator perspective and thinking about it as an employer, what are key ingredients that come to mind in addition to that professional development?
Sure. So obviously training is always number one for the trainer, right? But I think it's more than just the traditional sort of classroom or virtual training that we're used to. There's so much training that happens peer to peer, so much training that happens on the job. And if you can build in some structure around that so that you have an actual OJT program that says, here's the expectation, let me train you how to do this to our standard, and then be able to provide feedback, again, peer to peer. So it's not like you get in trouble when you make a misstep, but that you've got a buddy who's really on your side trying to get you up to speed, whether it's a new process, you joined a new team, or you're brand new to the company. And to that, I would also add a mentorship component. I have found that mentorship works really well when you're mentored by somebody who isn't in your vertical. So again, I can confess to my mentor a huge mistake or a big question that I think I probably should know the answer to, but I don't quite yet. I can go to my mentor and talk that through without any concern about discipline or looking foolish. My mentor is on my side. My mentor is trying to help grow me. And so all of that is part of the training and development that's outside beyond the classroom. It's also about looking for, career paths because many of us don't want to do the same job for the next 25 years. Now,
Mhm.
if you do, you want training to be the very best, right, at what you do. But if you're looking to grow those skills and, kind of trying something new in your career, it's also about having access to other departments, job shadowing, or even just going to lunch with somebody and saying, "What the heck do you do in marketing? Like, it sounds so cool. What do you do day to day?" Because maybe that's something I will love and maybe it's not. So, making sure that people have access to that information so they can build their own career paths, even if the company doesn't have them.
Internal mobility, shadowing, I think is so important, having those informational interviews and access to cross collaboration for projects, and also to your point, mentorship, which is so important, and having that trust and psychological safety too with the person and the or the peer that you're talking to as well, to really share ideas, give feedback, and not be afraid that you are going to make a mistake as well, or don't have all of the answers. A lot of organizations who have these key ingredients were maybe impacted a little less by what a lot of folks are talking about too, in terms of the great resignation, the great reset, the great reimagination, a lot of different terms for it. But essentially, folks are looking for these best places to work and who really authentically values them. What advice do you have for organizations who have experienced attrition or more attrition during this time?
It's such a good question, very timely, of course. The first is if you don't survey your employees, that would be a good place to start to get some honest feedback that's anonymous. So, using a third party, collecting some information about how people feel about their work. What do they love? What don't they love? Where are their pain points? And what do they want? I think one of the big missteps that many of us make as leaders is assuming that we know, and we really don't. I've seen really great companies who've put so much into creating a really collaborative work environment. They did the ping pong tables and they did the big snack rooms. And at first, that was super exciting. But what their people really wanted were one on one conversations with their direct leaders. And we kind of miss the mark when we don't hear from our employees first. So I think that's the first piece. But I think there are a lot of additional facets to that conversation, which have to do with, you know, how do people feel about coming to work? What makes them happy? What's energizing to them? And that also leads into those one-on-one conversations and quarterly check-ins and, stay interviews. What could somebody offer you right now that would make you turn in your notice and say, "I'm going"? If we know all of those things, then we can build the infrastructure to address them. So I would say the first is find out and don't assume. And the second would be create action plans and communicate. We heard you. Now here's what we're going to do about it.
Effective communication is so important, asking open-ended and also specific questions about how someone is experiencing the culture, their job on a day-to-day basis. And you're right in terms of just opening up different avenues for people to communicate that as well, whether it's day one, day 90, year five at an organization as well. And I think one of the key ways you ask those questions is in one-on-ones with your manager, or a skip level meeting too. And I think we've all experienced maybe some less effective one-on-ones where it's just more transactional or tactical, and you share all the good things that are happening, which is great. But I want to ask, in your experience as a manager and just as an operator too, what really makes these conversations the most effective in a one-on-one when you have that time with your manager or someone on your team as well?
So I have found over the years, and after making many, many mistakes being a manager, that every single employee, no matter what generation you're in, no matter what work you do, no matter what your experience, every single one of us wants to feel seen, heard, valued, and understood. And so a great one-on-one allows you to foster that relationship by really listening to what people have to say and then responding. And responding can be asking a follow-up question, right? It doesn't just mean I hear you, right? People want to engage in a genuine, authentic conversation. So first, I see you. Hey, Christina, it's so great to see you today. How is your day going? Right? Talk to me about the best thing that happened to you since the last time we met. Tell me about the biggest challenge that you faced and how did you overcome it? Asking questions like, what support do you need from me? And really ensuring that it's a conversation and it's not a download. We don't want to turn it into an ongoing performance review, even though we do want to give feedback. We want to make sure that there's a real like 80-20. The employee brings 80% of the conversation, the manager about 20%. One of the best ways to make sure that happens is to give people questions ahead of time. Hey, think about these things and come ready to talk because I really want to know more. So we set people up for success in that way. And I think that can be really beneficial. But just staying focused on the fact that people only feel valued if they really feel like we are invested in them, if we really care about them. And they can only feel understood if we give them a space to talk and we stop talking to listen.
Absolutely. The active listening and following up, asking really proactive questions. And it's a two-way kind of mutual relationship there as well. And I like what you said earlier too, in setting people up for success, knowing what questions you're going to ask ahead of time. I love a good collaborative agenda. So no one is caught off guard either way too. And thinking about that 80 kind of 20 rule of thumb, I think is helpful. I think for new managers, and again, from my perspective, not everybody needs or wants to be a manager. For those who are interested and want to take that next step from being an individual contributor to managing folks, what are the resources organizations need to provide to those new managers to ensure they are ready to move into that people leader role, knowing that there are additional responsibilities that come with that?
One of the biggest challenges, I think, for companies, but also for employees, is that first time leadership role because you don't know what you don't know. And I will tell you, having been a leadership trainer for years and then becoming a training manager, it did not go well. It did not go well at all. The first few months, awesome. Everybody's engaged and they're excited and it's new. And then the reality sets in and it's like, oh my gosh, not only do I have to get work done through other people, but I have to give corrective feedback and I have to remember to recognize them and I have to manage all the projects and it is so different. So I always think about, that phrase, what got you here won't get you there, because in my case, being an amazing trainer doesn't make you an automatically amazing manager. And I think that's true across the board. So thinking about your emerging leaders, who are the people on your team right now who are high performers with great attitudes? Who are the people that you trust to train your new hires? Who are the people that you give the most autonomy to? Who are the people that other people like to work with on your team? Those are the folks that are going to become great leaders for your organization. So you can start training them now. Most of us wait to train new leaders until they're in the new role. And quite frankly, it's a little too late. So we can start building their confidence and their skills before that promotion. So when that promotion comes, everyone around them says, oh, of course it was going to be Christina. Look all the great things she's been doing for the past 4 months. Who else would they pick? And those skills include a lot of the interpersonal communication skills, but also organization, presenting yourself as a leader and establishing your leadership brand, because all of that can happen before you have a title. And that will make the transition so much smoother on the employee, on the manager, and quite frankly, on the entire team.
Yeah, it's never too early to start and invest in those conversations, the training, and making sure that again people are set up for success and nobody is surprised there too, and really investing the resources for folks to really do a great job in that manager role. I think over the past few years as well, we're all thinking about kind of the great managers we worked with and the involvement the manager has in an employee's experience at an organization too. We've also seen a lot of changes and great innovation in the people space as well, knowing that business as usual was mandatorily thrown out the window there. I'm sure there are a lot of different ones, but can you share an innovation in the people talent training space you're really excited by and why? Some examples can include the 4-day work week, more flexible scheduling, authentic mental health benefits, returnships. You mentioned stay interviews too, which I'm hearing more and more about. What are your thoughts on that?
There are so many really exciting things that are going on in that space. But I think what's challenging is really understanding the benefit that they're all going to bring. Because if you recall at the beginning of COVID, when so many people were sent home from work, there was this huge, cheer of joy from all of these administrative people who had never had that opportunity before. And now we're starting to see a lot of companies kind of reverse back and say, oh no, we need everyone back in the office. So I think one of the exciting things that's happening and that hopefully will happen more is trusting our employees. There's been this big flip flop, right? 3, 4 years ago, employers had all the power. We set up your work week. We told you all the expectations, when you were coming to work, what you were going to accomplish, how it was going to look, and we got to select you. Now employees have the upper hand. We need them in a company, I think sometimes more than the employees need us. So they're certainly looking for all of those different things that resonate with them. And a lot of that has to do with the trust that a company invests in them. So if you want more autonomy in your work, you have to find a company and a leader who's able to do that with confidence, who's not afraid that if I can't see you at your desk, it means you're not working. And, that also leads into flex scheduling, remote work. There are some people whose jobs are capable of doing it 100%, some people 25%, but looking at the job role and what's required and building that trust. And I think that trust also leads into wellness. What kind of benefits we offer and how we allow employees to take advantage of them says a lot about how much we trust them to manage their time and their resources. It can also look like, career advancement. If your company didn't have that, do we trust that we've hired the right people that we can grow into amazing leaders? Because if we have, let's invest in them. So for me, the piece of the puzzle that I'm the most excited about is this increase in employee trust, which also means that our leaders are building their own confidence in being able to manage their teams, but also to lead them with a really strong vision and some inspiration to go along with it, so that they've got empowered folks who can actually get out there and do their jobs really well without their manager checking in every single day or every single hour.
Absolutely. Nobody loves a micromanager. Guidance and support is really, really important, but not that checking in constant, really trusting that your team is doing the work, empowering them, equipping them with the tools to carry that out is so important, and manifesting what that actually means at an organization, whether it's a flexible schedule, whether it's remote first or working from home, flexibility in a hybrid environment too. I think it definitely makes sense there. Marla, for folks who aren't as familiar with emerging leader training, can you tell us a little bit more about your organization?
Oh my gosh, I would love to. So we really seek out opportunities to fill that gap, right? Before somebody becomes a first-time leader, we want to be able to equip them with the tools, the knowledge, and the experience to be successful. So our entire role when we work with our clients is to help them identify high potential employees, to provide them the training and the support to grow their leadership skills today, so that we have a really smooth transition for them to become a first-time leader. So we're able to help companies maintain great empowerment and great relationships with these high potential employees so they don't look elsewhere. So it's all about retention. And then we're also able to help them create an internal talent pipeline, so that as new opportunities present themselves, they've got some amazing internal candidates that they can put into those roles, helping fill them faster and with people who are already ingrained in the culture. And that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years.
That's super exciting, and definitely a resource that people should look into. We'll include some information in the show notes as well. If you were to complete the sentence, in order to be a really successful emerging leader or first-time manager, leader, of tomorrow, what would you say is really necessary, either a skill or a characteristic someone needs to have?
Well, it might sound cliche, but you really have to be humble. You have to be humble enough to say, I don't know, and hungry enough to go find out. And I think that has to do with not just, finding great books and articles, but, seeking out great mentors, leaning on some of the great leaders in your life and learning from them. And always, always try to be in rooms with people who are smarter than you.
Yes, I love that. It's not only kind of bringing that humility into the conversation, saying, okay, I'm not sure what the answer is here. I'm going to be honest about that. But also that second part of saying, I don't know yet, but I'm going to go find out. I'm hungry to know the answer for this and do my research. And a lot of being a leader, I think, really reflects that self work, the internal work, which is so important, and it impacts how we show up every day, not only to work, but in the different roles we wear outside of work as well. Marla, is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share with folks who are listening, or maybe underscoring a couple key insights you hope people bring with them?
I would just go back to the communication piece because I've just seen so many companies who do employee opinion surveys or engagement surveys, and they get all this data, and it's kind of like you're drowning in it. There's so much information and all this great stuff, and what do we do with it? And I would say, just do something. Anything is better than nothing. And right now, we've got a lot of companies who are thinking like, how am I going to survey my people? Do I do a big survey, do a short, pulse survey with 3 questions? It really doesn't matter. People want the opportunity to be heard. They want to voice their opinions. They want to let you know what's really going on. And if you take that data and you reply back to your team and say, hey guys, we're going to get together and talk about this, it has value. Otherwise, you've pretty much created like this dusty old suggestion box in a corner with a lock on it that nobody ever opens. And
Yeah.
people start to, feel really resentful, like, well, why did you ask if you weren't going to, talk to me about it, if we were never going to revisit it? And it's such a great engagement tool. You may not be able to fix all of their challenges, but one, at least you'll know about them. And two, you can really help people feel heard and valued by responding to that data in any way so that they know you really did care. It wasn't just a check the box, experience. It genuinely was about how can I find out what's going on with my team and how can I be better for them?
Absolutely, absolutely. That follow up and how are you demonstrating that you are actively listening is really important, because if it is sitting in that dusty physical or virtual box, the likelihood of you getting that feedback at a later time is lower, because why would I share that with you if it's going to go into this black hole of nothingness? Marla, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And as a reminder for folks who are listening at AllVoices, we really believe in employees and employers being seen, heard, and understood. And now it's a requirement for the business to succeed overall. Have a great rest of your afternoon, everyone.